Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari. Vallabha Giridhari. Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari. Gopijana Vallabha Giridhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Nana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shishi Kishore Kishore ki. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Gaura Premanande. Hare Krishna. Good morning. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you for tolerating my deficiencies in giving class. Hopefully I can be empowered to speak by the Parampara. Hopefully Srimad Bhagavatam is sufficient, and I'll just try to help explain it a little bit according to my qualification. So we're reading from the Pastimes of Lord Ramacandra. The 9th canto, chapter 10, text 54. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ekapatni Vrata Dharo Rajarshi Charita Suchi Swadharmam Grihamedhiyam Shikshayan Swayam Acharat Ekapatni Vratadharo Rajarshi Charita Suchi Swadharmam Grihamedhiyam Shikshayan Swayam Acharat Ekapatni Vratadharo Rajarshi Charita Suchi Swadharmam Grihamedhiyam Shikshayan Swayam Acharat. Please chant. Ekapatni Vratadharo Swadharmam Grihamedhiyam Shikshayan Swayam Acharat Ekapatni Vratadharo Rajarshi Charita Suchi Swadharmam Grihamedhiyam Shikshayan Swayam Acharat Ekapatni Vratadharo Rajarshi Charita Suchi Swadharmam Grihamedhiyam Shikshayan Swayam Acharat. Okay, word for word. Ekapatni Vratadhara, taking a vow not to accept a second wife, or to have any connection with any other woman. Raja Rishi, like a saintly king. Charitaha, whose character. Shuchihi, pure. Svadharman, one's own occupational duty. Griha Medhiyam, especially for persons situated in household life. Shikshayan, teaching by personal behavior. Svayam, personally. Acharat, executed his duty. Translation, purport. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lord Ramacandra took a vow to accept only one wife and have no connection with any other woman. He was a saintly king, and everything in his character was good, untinged by qualities like anger. He taught good behavior for everyone, especially for householders, in terms of Varnashram Dharma. Thus, he taught the general public by his personal activities. Purport. Ekapatni Vrata, accepting only one wife, was the glorious example set by Lord Ramacandra. One should not accept more than one wife. In those days, of course, people did marry more than one wife. Even Lord Ramachandra's father accepted more wives than one. But Lord Ramacandra, as an ideal king, accepted only one wife, Mother Sita. When Mother Sita was kidnapped by Ravana and the Rakshasas, Lord Ramacandra, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, could have married hundreds and thousands of Sitas. But to teach us how faithful he was to his wife, he fought with Ravana and finally killed him. The Lord punished Ravana and rescued his wife to instruct men to have only one wife. Lord Ramacandra accepted only one wife and manifested sublime character, thus setting an example for householders. A householder should live according to the ideal of Lord Ramacandra, who showed how to be a perfect person. Being a householder or living with a wife and children is never condemned, provided one lives according to the regulative principles of Varnashram Dharma. Those who live in accordance with these principles, whether as householders, brahmacharis, or vanaprastha, are all equally important. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Hashyata Deshatarine Panchakopa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, the verse is speaking about Lord Ramacandra accepting only one wife as the king of Ayodhya, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's in the spiritual world, he's served by countless goddesses of fortune. And we see in Krishna's pastimes, Krishna in Dwarka has 16,108 wives. And he's able to expand himself to maintain a relationship with all these wives every day at the same time. The Lord Ramachandra's pastimes are different in a sense that he's strictly following the example that a householder and a normal conditioned soul can follow. Whereas we can't follow Krishna's example so much and maintain so many wives. And it's glorious. In the purport, Prabhupada says it's a glorious example that Lord Ramacandra only accepted one wife. And it was even common during those days to accept more than one wife. But Lord Ramacandra only accepted one wife, so there's a lot of significance for the example that he set. He's teaching by example how we can execute household life. We should be dedicated and committed to one person and not become unsatisfied quickly, but follow Lord Ramachandra's example and be committed in a relationship, which in Kali Yuga we see that that's not so common to be done. Not very easy, but so that's why it's glorious. It's a glorious example. So, kind of going off this point of Lord Ramachandra setting the example of a cultured person, so we are finding we are trying to learn how to become cultured. And the reason why we have to have these examples shown to us is because we're actually uncultured. We're coming from a society that's degraded. So we have to learn how to be cultured by the example of Lord Ramachandra. And learn how to execute the duties of Varnashram Dharma. So the uncultured society, there's one quality that's really prevalent, which is the basis of the material world, which is in Bhagavad Gita, in the Sanskrit it's called kama, and translated into English it's lust. So this is said in Bhagavad Gita to be the enemy of this whole world. It's the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world, lust. So this lust is what calls the conditioned soul to be unfaithful to their one wife and to look for more. And it's said in the Bhagavad Gita that this lust burns like fire and is never satisfied. So we see that people give up their relationships so easily, and they give up their wife to seek to fulfill their lustful desires. And this is the degradation of society. It creates unwanted progeny. So this culture of chastity is, and this, according to this Varnashram Dharma, keeps society together. That's what Dharma means. It means to hold up. So, like Giridhari, Dari means to hold. So to hold together society. But materialistic society is the opposite, where it's just meant to fulfill lustful desires. So this culture, the Varnashram culture, which in the previous verses said can be established in this age of Kali based on the chanting of the holy name, gives us support and gives us higher engagement so we can overcome the lust. We become engaged in this culture of Krishna consciousness, and all these activities that can be done and all these people to support you. You can even become married, like in the purport Prabhupada is saying, doesn't matter if you're a brahmachari or vanaprastha or a householder. If you're following this culture of Varnashram Dharma, then you're all equally important. So this gives us the support to practice Krishna consciousness long term and become purified of this lust that's actually within us. As the contamination that keeps us from understanding Krishna. So I wanted to talk about lust in this class, if that's okay with everybody. Kind of do a little bit of a evaluation on lust and this pastime. The one thing I've been meditating on throughout this pastimes is how Ravana is the personification of the lust of the conditioned souls. So, and he's not just like a little bit of lust, he's like the personification of like the highest expression of lust. So he's actually at the highest point of what a conditioned soul can become when they pursue their lusty desires. He has 10 heads. He's very strong. He goes around and exploiting, every person's wife that he wants, and ultimately, when he sees Sita, he wants to exploit her, and that means he also wants to kill Lord Ramacandra. So this is the highest expression of lust. And actually, every conditioned soul has this propensity to some degree or another to actually want to enjoy Sita without Lord Ramacandra. That's generally why we're in the material world, is because we want to enjoy separately from Krishna, from Ram. So it's really actually, you have to be very honest. I have to be very honest with myself, and everyone has to be very honest with themselves to evaluate this contamination that's actually within ourselves, in order to not be tricked by it, because it's actually in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that the lust is within the mind, within the intelligence, and within the senses. So this enemy of lust, of wanting to enjoy separate from Krishna, is actually within our material bodies and within our material minds. So we should always be aware of that, that our enemy is very near to us. So this is why the importance of the spiritual master and the guidance of senior devotees is so important, because we can't actually trust our mind and intelligence, and especially not our senses, to know what's best. So if we're acting according to the guidance of senior devotees, then we're able to stay on track in the culture. We're supported. Otherwise, we're just at the whim of our contaminated mind, senses, and intelligence, which is controlled by the enemy of lust, which is very subtle. It's very subtly there within our decision making. So we have to overcome this lust, and that's the process of anartha nivritti. Anartha is what's unwanted within our heart, and what's covering us over. And so the process of anartha nivritti is to destroy the contamination that is within our mind, senses, and intelligence. And the whole process of devotional service, which is given to us by Srila Rupa Goswami, is to engage our intelligence and our mind and senses in the service of Krishna. And that purifies our senses of the enemy of lust. And generally, it's a gradual process. It's not like in one day you get cleared of this contamination. It's a gradual process, but at the same time, since time is relative and there's a lot of mercy in Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and we have very short lifetimes, it's actually, if we look back, actually we are being purified quite rapidly. Quite rapidly, actually. When you look back maybe a year ago, if you're practicing full-time, if you look back a year ago, you will see a crazy amount of difference between your consciousness then and your consciousness now. So that the process actually does work quite rapidly. Sometimes we expect things like instantaneously become Krishna conscious. But like I said, if you look over a period of time, you'll see that it's working. We're becoming purified quite a bit. One point that I wanted to speak about overcoming this lust is also by the practice of anartha nivritti. One of the key principles of overcoming our contamination is the third verse of the Shikshashtakam. Chanadapi sunichena turorapi sahishtuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So the holy name is completely purifying. But our mind, intelligence, and senses do not want to become purified because they're contaminated by lust. So it's difficult to keep chanting all the time, and to keep, because the holy name is like medicine. In the Nectar of Instruction, there's a verse, I think it's the 6th verse, where it says that we have jaundice of the tongue. We have no taste for chanting. It's actually bitter. So, but if you keep chanting, you keep taking the medicine, gradually it becomes sweet, like sugar candy in the tongue. Because when there's jaundice in the tongue, the sugar is bitter. But if you keep taking the medicine, then it becomes sweet again. So the chanting of the holy name is actually very bitter when you're contaminated. I was just meditating on this when I was chanting japa, and it's oftentimes when I'm chanting japa, actually, it's a lot of suffering, to be completely honest. Japa is extremely difficult sometimes when you're a conditioned soul, because the mind wants to wander and pursue this lust, and the intelligence and the senses want to do the same thing, and then chanting is just like beating the contaminated mind, senses, and intelligence. And it's a painful process actually in the beginning. It's bitter medicine. But the verse, being more tolerant than a tree, thinking yourself lower than the blade of grass, ready to offer all respect to others and not expecting any respect in return, then you can chant the holy name constantly. So this is the instruction by Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, he didn't say in his Shikshashtakam, follow your desires, do whatever you want, think yourself very great. He said, think yourself lower than the straw in the street. So oftentimes I hear people saying, you have to be yourself. You have to follow what you want. But we should be careful with this, because we should know that we're actually being controlled by our enemy if we're not under the control of Guru and Krishna. And to keep ourselves under Guru and Krishna, we always have to keep ourselves lower. And this keeps us in a position of openness to cry out for Krishna and cry out for the mercy. Hare Krishna. It's a cry for help, actually, because we're covered over by our enemy. And the enemy is within us, within our bodies, within our minds, within our intelligence. It's infiltrated. So we have to cry out, and to do that we have to be honest and introspective about our position of how fallen we are, how low of a position we have gotten ourselves into. And that's what the verse is about, seeing yourself lower than the straw on the street. Offering all respect to others. It's the opposite of what we want to do. We want, in the material world, the material mind and senses and intelligence, we want people to respect us, and in turn we are always finding fault with other people. I find my mind and intelligence is always giving me ideas. It's like a constant thing, almost all the time. It's always trying to tell me why I am better than other people. I've caught on to this trick of the mind, that it's constantly saying, this person does this, so you're better than them. It's always finding these little things wrong with other people, so then you can feel a sense of importance, so you can feel better, so you can feel superior. But this is the enemy, and Lord Chaitanya's instruction is to smash this contamination by thinking yourself lower than the straw on the street, being more tolerant than a tree. So when other people are disrespecting you, you're also just tolerating that. That's an extremely difficult thing to do, especially when you're taking up this process of Krishna consciousness. You think, I'm a very important person, I've become a devotee, I'm basically enlightened compared to the rest of the world, so basically everybody should worship me. But that doesn't happen, and so that creates a lot of frustration. And then when somebody actually blatantly disrespects you, it's very disturbing. But Lord Chaitanya's instruction is to tolerate these things and to keep chanting. Otherwise, if we get controlled by these things, it takes over, and you start finding fault with devotees. You're not able to show respect, and every little thing that goes wrong against you totally invokes anger and wrath within you. And when we're going through the anartha nivritti, there's a lot of circumstances that agitate the mind. So this is the shelter, this mood, this mood of humility and fallenness. This is what allows us to overcome the enemy of lust that's within ourselves. And that's what allows us to keep going through the process of purification when it's very bitter, when chanting japa is not so fun, and the mind is just driving you crazy. But you keep going through that. You keep accepting, okay, I'm fallen. I've fallen to the material world. I'm contaminated. I have to keep chanting. I'm lower than the straw on the street. Keep chanting, day in and day out, to keep serving. And you see, if you can maintain that, then the purification over time is very evident. I just have a little bit of experience with that, and I have a long ways to go, and I have a lot of humility and tolerance to build. But I can see that when I give in to my desire or my mind and intelligence, it's telling me to go somewhere else, do something else. But that will bring like happiness in the mode of passion. It'll bring maybe a little bit of happiness right away, but so much suffering in the end. So we have to take this bitter medicine of Krishna consciousness, even when it's not seeming like it's so nice. We have to work through it and tolerate these difficulties, and we'll become purified by this process. One thought I was thinking of, so kind of like on the theme of accepting that we've been overcome by this lust, is one thought I linked it to is the Alcoholic Anonymous, AA. They have a 12-step recovery of how to overcome their addiction to alcohol. And it's similar to this Anartha Nivritti, where they accept that alcohol has overcome them, that they have no power to fight this alcohol by themselves. And then the next step is to find and admit that there's a higher power, and that only by going to the higher power can you overcome this alcoholism. And they had a lot of success with getting people off of their addiction to alcohol. So similarly, it's kind of a funny comparison that even though we're not necessarily alcoholics, but we may be addicted to, even as practicing devotees, that we can be devoted or addicted to subtle sense gratification, such as pride, fame, honor, respect, needing these things. And so it's important for us to admit that we're controlled by these things internally. Otherwise, they continue to devour us internally. And one of the reasons why Srila Prabhupada spoke a lot about Varnashram is because during this time, there's a lot of people, devotees, Prabhupada's disciples, who had taken sannyas, and they were falling down from their position. If you're falling down from your position, it means you're holding yourself to this standard, but you're not actually there. So then it's driving you crazy, and you have to find some way to break this like craziness, because you're so strict with yourself, but you're not actually at that level. I mean, imagine being like a 23-year-old American that just took sannyas. Like, I mean, some people made it through. I think Jayapataka Swami, might have been, I think he took really young as an American sannyasi. But most people weren't ready for that level of renunciation. So Prabhupada began to speak a lot about Varnashram. And in this verse, Prabhupada speaks about how it's okay to be a grihasta, be a householder, but to follow the codes of varnashram. So, so the point that I'm making is to be more honest with ourselves and where we're at is important in making progress. We don't have to pose ourselves as pure devotees, because then the purification won't be as quickly accessible. If we accept that we're not so advanced, or that we're having troubles, we share it with other people, and we act according to our position, then we're able to chant with feeling, then we're able to serve accordingly, and we're able to make progress. But there's a lot of difficulty when you make yourself out to be more advanced than you are, and you're not able to call out sincerely. Maybe it seems like you're chanting very seriously in your japa period, but maybe you're just posing yourself like that externally, and internally your mind is driving you crazy. Then over a year, 2 years, there's like something happens, crack, boom, not able to tolerate, not able to see yourself as lower than the straw on the street. You see yourself as very high, something happens, knocks you out from your feet, boom, you fall down. And this happens a lot with American devotees, especially joining Krishna consciousness from such a degraded background. And it's easy to instantly just think that you're a pure devotee when you join Krishna consciousness. Like I said earlier, especially relative to the rest of the world, we're extremely advanced and extremely enlightened, but that's not a good reference, because the rest of the world is extremely fallen. So we may be a little bit more than them, but we should still understand that little bit more than them is still extremely fallen. And that this is nice. It's nice to admit that we're fallen, so then we're able to chant, like I said, and we're able to tolerate these things. So one devotee that I know, he's coining this term, chant and be honest. Instead of chant and be happy, he's not trying to like criticize like Prabhupada's instruction to chant and be happy. That's also there, but he's just making a point to help devotees be more honest with themselves. So he repeats this often, chant and be honest. And this is a nice point that allows you to be where you're at and make progress. One point I remember him saying is that we have like a high expectation of happiness. We hear about like these symptoms of ecstasy, and we think that we should be experiencing that ecstasy like right now or something, but rather that kind of creates some agitation of the mind. Whereas if we are more honest with ourselves, we can be happy with the like little progress, some little success in where we're at, and then we can keep moving forward on the path of anartha nivritti. So I find that to be a nice, refreshing take on the process of anartha nivritti, is chanting and being honest with ourselves, and that's a good tool for overcoming the enemy of lust, the enemy of Ravana that has overtaken our mind, intelligence, and senses. So that's basically what I had prepared. Kind of, I can sum it up that Lord Ramacandra is setting the example, how to be a cultured person according to Varnashram Dharma. And the reason reason this is a good example is because we're covered over by lust. So we see these higher examples, and then we know that we need to act according to this culture, and we line up with this culture according to the parampara. We take the guidance of the Vaishnavas, and then we're in the culture. We just accept their guidance. We live our life according to their directions, and then we're safe. We're in the shelter, and we're not living according to our own whim, which is controlled by our mind, senses, and intelligence, which is covered over by lust. And an important aspect of doing this in the beginning especially, when we're going through Anartha Nivritti, is the verse Chanadapi Sunichena Toropi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahdi. So to always see ourselves as fallen and lower than the straw on the street, and be more tolerant than a tree, and to respect everyone, and not expect respect in return. In this way we can chant constantly and become purified of this lust. So that's my presentation on this verse. If anybody has any comments or questions, I'll be extremely grateful. We have some time, but if not, it's okay too. Dan, do you have any comments or questions? Krishna Archana Mataji. Chandriya, yeah. It's okay if not. We can.
You were highlighting the necessity of self-honesty to both facilitate a mood of, I guess, humbleness, or to assist one in having that humble mood of understanding oneself to be in a kind of fallen position. So perhaps the natural question arises, if one's in the middle of a battle that you've described of lust impelling the mind and the intelligence to move in the direction of fulfillment of the lust, and then on the other hand the reminders one has to give to the mind and intelligence of one's actual position, the kind of fallen position that one understands through Shastra. So the question that naturally arises is, in that battle that one's conducting internally, what is beneficial to assist one with that honesty, that self-honesty, because one is in a battle. So the space that allows for self-honesty, what enhances self-honesty, would you say, since you're experiencing this, being in the middle of a battlefield? So just perhaps to churn the topic a bit more.
Your question is, I guess, to sum it up, when you're in the battle, one of the tools that I mentioned, that I've heard, is like self-honesty and being honest with where we're at, so we can fight according to where we're at and maybe not take on too much. And your question is how to develop that more, or how to assist in that?
Is what would augment that honesty, that self-honesty? How, what resources does one draw upon to augment self-honesty, taking into account that one's in the middle of a battle, an internal battle?
What are some resources to help? I guess the one that comes to my mind right away is a senior devotee or a mentor. That's probably the best way to develop like a clear perspective of ourselves and an honest perspective of ourselves. If you have someone close to you who's more senior to you, it's an experience that I've had that kind of, if you share your thoughts with a senior devotee, then it really allows you to pinpoint some of the areas where we need work on. So that's a huge tool, is a senior devotee who you can really just like say exactly what's inside. Someone you can really share, who won't hold it against you and who can help you through that. That's probably the best tool, and an important one too, because this, like, it helps control the mind. It's like someone who's stronger than you, you share that with them, and even if they don't even say anything to help you, the fact that you shared it with a senior devotee, even that process in and of itself is like powerful enough to help you overcome it, the difficulties. So I would say that's probably the main tool. It reminds, in the verse 4 of Nectar of Instruction, one of the instructions is Guyam Akyati Prichati, inquiring confidentially and sharing confidentially is one of the 2 of the 6 loving exchanges of devotees, and it's probably one of the 2 most important ones too. Exchanging between devotees is sharing where we're actually at, what we're actually thinking, and inquiring from them. So yeah, that's the main tool, I would say. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you for surviving my class. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thai Gora Premanande Hari Hari Bol.